Welcome into another edition of the Fantasy Draft Room Prime Time Series recap. We had a absolute barn burner again tonight, 2 weeks in a row that I really don't even want to do a show. The Washington Commanders and the Chicago Bears put up an absolute thriller of a game, 12-7. Washington Commanders pull out the win. Darnell Mooney doesn't run his route into the end zone, catches the ball in the end zone at first, fumbles it, catches it, and controls it outside of the end zone. It's not a touchdown. It's down at the quarter-yard line. Washington Commanders sneak out with a win. I believe the Chicago Bears ran 9 plays inside of the 5-yard line and came away with a total of 0 points in this game. Just an absolute ugly game from everything. Carson Wentz looked like he really hurt his hand, and he also hurt his ankle at some point in this game, but he's a tough dude. He's just hard to watch he's hard to watch really at almost any point, but especially when he's trying to play through injury. It is not pretty. Still came out with the win. Justin Fields looks absolutely putrid when he's behind the line of scrimmage, but whenever he's in front of the line of scrimmage, he does really good things with his legs, and he's probably going to be, probably like a top 14 quarterback this week just because he ran for about 60, 70 yards. So we're going to get into this game from the fantasy aspect side of things. Let's break down the box score using snap count, routes run, targets, everything that you need to know to really break down this game from a fantasy aspect. And we're going to start off with the Washington Commanders, the winning team on this side of things. We're going to dive first into Carson Wentz. The stat total for him: didn't throw the ball much in this game. They knew they could control it. I don't know if that was their plan or not, but maybe it was a little bit because he was hurt. 22 attempts, 12 completions for 99 yards. The man did not crack 100 yards passing in this game. It was ugly, and I don't know what much to say about it. It's not going to look good for any of these wide receivers, obviously, so we're going to get into them. We're probably going to breeze through this side. I think we have a little bit of more interest in the running backs on this side of things. And this is where we do have our snap share data for the running backs as well. We don't have it yet for the Chicago Bears, so I will give it to you for the Washington Commanders. But first, we're going to break down the wide receivers. Total snaps on offense, they ran 57 snaps and 25 passes. So the 22 attempts for Carson Wentz, you're probably taking a couple of those out. Or at least on the routes run was 25. So Terry McLaurin was the leading wide receiver in this room, which he should be. 56 snaps, 25 routes run on 25 attempts. Only turned that into 4 targets, though, and his 4 targets turned into 2 receptions for 11 yards. He did also have 2 carries where he turned that into, 25 routes run, 4 targets, turned that into 3 receptions for 41 yards. Only 2 carries, but he did turn those 2 carries into 11 yards. After that, the next man up is Curtis Samuel in this offense, apparently running at 49 snaps with 23 routes run. Got the same number of targets with 4. Didn't have any carries in this game, but he turned his 4 targets into 2 receptions for 6 yards. If you were buying high on Curtis Samuel, obviously this wasn't probably the game. Hopefully they get into maybe some better game scripts or something, but I have never been really a fan of Curtis Samuel, and I don't think 2 for 6 is really what you're expecting every week, but I don't think he's up there, in the wide receiver 30 or, wide receiver 3 or 2 type range. So after that, really not much of note. We've got Cam Sims here with 41 snaps, 21 routes run, 2 targets, turned those 2 targets into 1 reception for 6 yards. Dax Milne and Diami Brown were the other wide receivers. Dax Milne brought 6 snaps, 1 route run, 1 target. Diami Brown, 3 snaps, 3 routes run, 1 target. I guess Diami Brown will break down just because, it turned the 1 target, didn't even turn it into a catch. It's not even worth a breakdown. So after the big blow-up game last week, nothing happening this week. So we'll move into the tight ends really quick. Unfortunately to see, John Bates not getting any work in this game. So the turn to the tight ends of Cole Turner and Armani Rogers, and also Logan Thomas out of this game. So those were your 2 top tight ends. Cole Turner was the lead man with 53 snaps, 23 routes run, 2 targets, turned the 2 targets into Let's see, 2 catches for 23 yards. Still a non-factor in Armani Rogers. I'm not even going to get into. Let's get into what we really care about for this team, though. Brian Robinson returns to action for the first time since suffering the gunshot wounds and the carjacking. Absolutely great story. Saw a thing earlier right before we got on here that Brian Robinson has recovered from his gunshot wounds quicker than Keenan Allen has recovered from his slightly tweaked hamstrings. So that's pretty incredible from Brian Robinson. And he came right back in playing 26 snaps. And routes run, he ran 6 routes, and he also picked up 17 carries, turned those 17 carries into 60 yards and a touchdown. And through the air, sorry about that, through the air, Brian Robinson didn't do anything through the air on his 6 routes run, where the running back that was through the air was Antonio Gibson, even though he only played 17 snaps compared to Brian Robinson's 17. He did, however, J.D. McKissick with 17 snaps, 11 routes run, 3 targets, and 2 carries. J.D. McKissick turning the 2 carries into 20 yards and 0 receptions. Antonio Gibson was the last man in the backfield, only on 15 snaps. He did have 7 routes run with 4 targets, though, and 5 carries, turning the 5 carries into 35 yards, running at a much better clip than what Brian Robinson was for his 17 for 60, and then also picking up 3 receptions for 18 yards on his 4 targets. Let's break down this one for the running back usage, because this is really what we care about. Where are Antonio Gibson, Brian Robinson, and J.D. McKissick seeing their action? Where are they getting? Are they getting on the goal line, on first down, early downs, third downs, 2-minute drill? Where are we getting that? So in every play, we'll break it down by snap percentage for every game. Just one more time. Antonio Gibson with 13 snaps, Brian Robinson with 25, J.D. McKissick with 17, and there were 2 plays where there was a 2-back set. On early downs, we saw it with Antonio Gibson with 11 snaps, Brian Robinson with 21, J.D. McKissick with 2, and early downs was where we did see those 2-back snaps. Goal line, it was all Brian Robinson, but they only had 2 carries on the goal line. He also picked those up in short yardage situations with 2 total snaps in short yardage situations. Third down, though, we did see no Brian Robinson. We saw 8 third down snaps. J.D. McKissick picked up 8, and Antonio Gibson picked up 2 in the 2-minute drill, and J.D. McKissick was in for all 9 snaps of the 2-minute drill. So the takeaways from this, you probably don't want any of these guys. J.D. McKissick isn't getting enough of the passing work because Antonio Gibson is still coming in and being a factor. Brian Robinson is the plotter. He's going to be in on first and second down. You're hoping he falls into the goal line like he did tonight, but still only 17 for 60. Wasn't great behind this line. And then you've got Antonio Gibson, who's just this kind of like mixed back where he's really not getting enough of any of the work to really be a factor. So it's gonna be rough, I think, for all of these running backs moving forward. And it isn't a good team with being, 2-4 record. Carson Wentz now possibly hurt going into the next couple of weeks, and it's just a bad team. But somehow the Chicago Bears are still worse. It's truly incredible how they are still worse. Unfortunately, we don't have the down snap data for the Chicago Bears, but all that you need to know really is David Montgomery is still leading this, even though Khalil Herbert is probably the better running back. We saw him break away that monster 64-yard rush, and he looks fantastic in the open field. Maybe, he doesn't, carry as well between the tackles as David Montgomery. He doesn't hold up as well, but I would much rather see Khalil Herbert running this offense than David Montgomery. Justin Fields, though, oh my goodness. Okay, yeah, we're gonna get into his passing stats first. 14 of 27. This is actually decently high for Justin Fields in his attempts, at least, compared to his previous games where he's had 21, 22, 17, 11, and 17 so far this season. So at least we luckily got 27 attempts, maybe because we're down and they threw a little bit more in the fourth quarter trying to get back into this game, but good to see him at least hitting over 25 snaps or 25 attempts for the first time in the passing game all year. It's still not great, though. 190 yards. He threw for 1 touchdown and 1 interception. His saving grace, though, it is the thing that's saving him. It's going to be his legs. 12 carries for 88 yards. it's going to get him a good fantasy week. And really, that's all we're here for. It's all we care about. I can't buy into him yet because this team is just so bad. He still doesn't have weapons. And you are hoping that he gets that rush. The rushing floor is going to be there, but I still can't do it. I still cannot bump Fields up into any sort of relevance for fantasy right now. Let's get into the snap counts, though, for the wide receivers. They had 72 total snaps. Wow, 72 to 57 total snaps for the Washington Commanders versus the Chicago Bears, and the team with 57 snaps won. Yikes. In the snap counts, though, for the wide receivers, we'll get into that room first. Darnell Mooney was 66 snaps on the 72 total snaps. 39 routes run, 10 targets with no carries. On those 10 targets, he did turn that into 7 receptions for 68 yards. Nothing spectacular, but a pretty solid game from Darnell Mooney, all things considered. Equanimeous St. Brown was the second wide receiver in terms of snaps. He had 46 with 26 routes run. He did pick up a carry as well. Carry turned into a rush for 1 yard, nothing of anywhere near significance. Through the air, though, with his 0 targets, 26 routes run, 0 targets. I was expecting to actually have to say some sort of stat line there, and nope, nothing through the air for Equanimeous St. Brown, even though he's out there as the second snap share wide receiver. Dante Pettis was actually the one right behind him, and he was the one who actually turned it into a good fantasy game. So good luck to all those Dante Pettis shares that you started out there in all your fantasy leagues, because I'm sure you did that. 44 snaps, 30 routes run. He actually ran more routes than Equanimeous St. Brown, so that might be a thing to look out for here in the future. He had 6 targets on those 30 routes, turning his 6 targets into 4 receptions, 84 yards and a touchdown. He had that long bomb of 40 yards that it was Justin Fields' one good throw of the game. I guess he's good for at least one, maybe a half of one a game if we're going to take an over-under. And that was a beautiful throw, great catch by Dante Pettis. And those are 2 things that I don't say often with Dante Pettis and Justin Fields in the same sentence. So after that, it really is guys of no significance. You have Amir Smith-Marset, who also just muffed a punt off of his face mask, Velus Jones, and those are the only wide receivers. I'm not even really going to go into their stat lines here because it doesn't really matter. Cole Kmet, we're going to get into the tight end room here. He absolutely dominated the share of the tight end room. Trevon Wesco and Ryan Griffin did have a little bit of work, but nothing worth noting. Cole Kmet was 67 snaps in the 72 total snaps. He had 37 routes run, 4 targets, turning those 4 targets into 1 catch for 15 yards. I mean, you just got it. It's bad what we've seen from Cole Kmet so far this year. And you can't trust him for anything. So, I mean, if you're in a redraft league, obviously you probably haven't even picked him up. And in any dynasty league, you're I mean, you can't be starting him if you're trying to compete right now. So hopefully you have some other options. But yeah, all the offseason hype of Cole Kmet isn't really panning out at all. Let's get into the running back room to close this thing out. David Montgomery with 56 of the 72 snaps, 30 routes run. 30 routes run for David Montgomery. That's incredible. However, only turning 30 routes run into 1 target. 1 target for David Montgomery. Man, that is wild. Turned it into 1 reception for 13 yards, though, on the ground, where we really care about. 15 carries for 67 yards with a long of 13. Plotter back, when you're comparing it to Khalil Herbert going for only 16 snaps to David Montgomery's 56. He's just not getting the snap share to be consistent week over week, but we see these big plays from Herbert. We've seen him, multiple times this season now. He only got 7 routes run compared to David Montgomery's 30, and he turned those 7 routes run into no targets, so nothing even really to note in the passing game. But the only other guys that did get snaps at the H-back and fullback were Treston Ebner with 3 snaps and Kari Blasingame with 6 snaps. Nothing of note there. So that's your fantasy recap. This is I wanted to do one, but man, there's not much to take away from this game. These 2 teams are not good. They're probably going to be bottom of the barrel teams by the end of the year, looking to be top draft picks. Maybe does Washington take a quarterback if they are in that upper echelon of draft picks? Does Chicago? I mean, are they really going to move on from Justin Fields this soon? I don't know. Justin Fields is, starting to creep into a little bit of interest for my fantasy teams just because of the rushing floor he's providing, but I cannot do it yet. He's good in front of the line of scrimmage, but behind the line of scrimmage, he looks awful, and I cannot buy into that, especially with how bad their offensive line and the weapons that he's throwing to are. Whenever Dante Pettis is your highlight of the night, I don't want anything to do with this. I don't want anything to do more with this game. I'm just going to stop talking. I'm going to get out of here. Hope you all have a great rest of your night, and hopefully we can come back Monday night and next Thursday night with a little bit of better games, a little bit of better breakdowns, and hopefully we can get a little bit of more fantasy actionable content for you. Until then, I'm Cody Smith at Cody Smith TFDR. Make sure you like, subscribe, do all of the things. We got some really cool content going on with mock drafts, a mid-season mock draft going on right now. We're going to put that one out next Thursday. You can also check out me and Chase's. We just dropped our pods this morning. We dropped a value-based mock draft where we went back and forth and made every pick for 48 picks. It was really fun. We're going to look at that one. We're going to look at this, mock draft that we've got going on right now with a lot of big names from our group in the Heisman tier chat, from Patreon, #allgas, /allgas, the Wake Up Crew, all of those guys over there at Destination Debbie. Big shout out to them. It's going to be an absolute blast over here for the next week, and we're really excited to bring this next episode of the pod to you next week. So make sure you're ready for it, subscribed, and we will see you next Monday for the next primetime recap breakdown. Until then, I'm Cody Smith. Cheers.